Hello and a very warm welcome to the second season of ETCFO presents ET Studio CFO Blueprint in association with SAP. I'm your host Divina Lasson. Now we're thrilled to bring you season 2 of this unique series, putting the spotlight on the evolving roles of CFOs in these uncertain times. Now this promises to be yet another power-packed season with iconic CFOs from India's most promising young companies. They will be setting the blueprint for us on how CFOs are shaping up to become both strategic partners in their companies as well as contributing to every aspect of business development and decision making. To help us understand this and much more, it's my pleasure to welcome our guest today. We have joining us in studio Prabhat Agarwal, SVP Finance Pristine Care, Anand Agarwal, CFO V-Mart Retail Limited, and Rahul Goel, VP and CFO Moglix. Right, gentlemen, welcome to ET Studios. Thank you so much for joining. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, we're here to talk about a really important and very interesting topic, which is the evolving role of the CFOs in very uncertain times on a global level. And of course, who better to talk us through how you see the role of the CFO evolving than industry absolute experts like you. So thank you for joining today. Just to kickstart, could you help us get an overview and understanding of how each of you have experienced the role of the CFO evolving? What are some of the key changes that you've seen taking place in the last few years when it comes to the responsibilities, when it comes to the positioning in the company, and just the overall macro perspective on how the CFOs are evolving? Prabhat, we can start with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Devina. And I think, say a decade back, the focus was basically, getting all the data in place, just visualizing everything. I think now we are in a scenario where we have data for everything. I mean, every transaction is literally mapped. I think what has really changed is making sense out of the data. What is the signal? What is the noise? I think that has become way more important. And driving out insights, sort of actioning change through that has come at the forefront. I think the other thing that's become even more important, I won't say change, but more important, is the CFO setting the tone at the top. And by that, I mean, what is the position of the organization on corporate governance, say where the lines are drawn. Typically, how do you look at customer centricity? How do you deliver your business model? And I think setting that has become most important. I think that would be my top two.
Absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you. Anand?
So I think you're absolutely right, Prabhat, and there's fundamentally a significant shift in the entire environment, and CFOs therefore cannot be left untouched. So what has fundamentally happened is that the role has moved away from accounting or finance and even controls to business partnering and setting up the tone, not only in terms of what growth to deliver, but also in terms of what strategies to pursue. And strategies may not just be limited to operating plans or long range plans or forecasts or controls, but they now also involve things like ESG, things like people, things like where do we want the business to be next. And it's so much more of business partnering. And I fully resonate with what Prabhat said. Data is the new oil. And that oil is now finding so many new different avenues of getting explored and getting leveraged, especially with this new AI thing which is now started to make inroads. I think we are just at the cusp of a new revolution. So it's not that our profile has changed. I think it will keep on changing and keep on evolving for even more better.
Absolutely. Lots of need then for upskilling and reskilling as well, I can imagine, which we'll deep dive into. But before that, Rahul, anything you'd like to add to that?
I think Prabhat and Anand has covered most of it, but I will say that I think digital transformation has become more and more important from a finance structuring perspective, and making sure that the business leaders also use data in a particular enablement format and give that transparency and become power users of those data and really bring insights out of that data. I think has become the more role for the finance folks, I will say, from that perspective.
Sure. So keeping in mind, of course, what everyone has said is how important data, but not only data, the collection, but the analysis and application of the insights, of course, becoming a big part of the business strategy. Prabhat, in that case, what would you say are some of the strategic responsibilities specifically? And again, speaking of how you're really upskilling, perhaps reskilling to meet these responsibilities, especially when it comes to taking on such a large aspect of the business role, as well as what Anand has resonated. What are some of the steps that CFOs are taking?
See, I think there is ever more increasing consciousness that we are part of the larger ecosystem. That
Yes.
ecosystem is part of us, and I think the demands to sort of tell our story better, respond essentially to events that happen. I mean, supply chains are getting disrupted. There are prices are going up and down every day. I think just the agility to respond essentially
Absolutely.
becomes very, very critical. And I think the first step is basically to respond or at least understand that this is the new normal. You have to really equip yourself for that. And then what happens is starting from the finance team, but also I think delivering that message in the org that we need to change fast. That is the need of the hour, and we need to respond effectively. I think that really helps.
Yes, yes, wonderful. Anand, let's bring you in on this. Some of the strategic responsibilities that CFOs are now taking on to meet all these evolving needs of the role.
There are so many different avenues and there are so many different aspects. And, in the words of Charles Darwin, who said, only the fittest of the tribe survive. So it's not the strongest, but the fittest. So you need to be fittest and you need to keep yourself making fitter more and more. And fitter is not only by way of physical attributes, but more by way of, mental attributes in the current domain.
Absolutely.
Now, there are so many different avenues which are open for you, be it, regulatory perspective, be it compliance perspective, be it accounting perspective or auditing perspective, and every stakeholder is looking up to you. And you really need to lead from the front. And that is the expectation which is set up already for you. So you cannot fail. Now, sometimes you become the victim of your own trap, and the situations or the circumstances force you to adapt and thereby grow. Now, there are so many different avenues that I personally have seen. I would not have imagined myself doing probably 5 years back or 10 years back. Just to give you a context, I am now leading, let's say, a RP implementation, which is a robotic process implementation. Now, technology may be something that I love, but probably my team is someone who's not, in bed with technology.
Sure.
Now, to lead that change requires a different skill set.
Absolutely.
It is not a finance, expertise, but you have to then become a people's manager. And that's a new strategic skill that you need to acquire to lead that change. Because unless you do that, you will not be able to make it successful. Similarly, if you have to lead the board into believing that ESG is now, more important than, say, profitability. Now, 5 years back, ESG used to mean only CSR. Or for the last 15-20 years, we've only worked on CSR. But now we have gone beyond CSR into, ESG. Now, which is a far bigger, wider canvas. Now, you have to convince all these stakeholders that why this is important, what will it mean for the organization, and what will therefore it will mean for everybody to, drive that change. Now, again, you have to be that change maker. But here, it is not the people skill that is required. It is more a convincing skill or a, understanding of that E, the S, and the G. When I first heard of ESG, I actually thought it was a Chinese salt. And eventually, when I started reading about it, and I realized how important it can be for any organization and what are the real changes it can bring about, not just in the way the balance sheets look, but also in the perception of the brand and the organization. So it makes a whole new, paradigm. Now, these are two very small examples, but there are plenty and plenty more. But yes, the bottom line is we need to be extremely agile, and we need to be extremely well-read, and we need to participate in more and more, public forums to understand what is going to come up next and be prepared for that all the time.
No, you bring up such relevant points, Sir Rahul, to bring you in on this. What would you say then, if you had to summarize some of the essential skills, competencies that CFOs need to develop in order to take on this leadership, as Anand is pointing out, across so many aspects of the business now?
I think the biggest skill set, what Anand correctly pointed out, is people skill. You have to interact with various stakeholders, and with various stakeholders, you need to manage it differently. At board level, you require a very different skill set versus when you are dealing with the business leaders versus your team versus HR versus external people. So I'm saying, see, the CFO has to become the change management for across the organization, because you have external parties to manage, you have internal parties to manage, you have a compliance burden to take care of that. People expect you walk the talk actually. That's the way people are looking up to you all the time. So the most important skill set I will say is interpersonal skill set. Accounting is given for all CFOs, accounting and finance domain. So anything what you related to people and understanding of technology. So for example, I give my all the challenge to my team that what you automate next in next 3 months, 6 months. So when you talk about automation, normal tendency of people is to add people. You can't just add people continuously over a period of time and don't use help of technology which is evolving around you. So that's the way you need to push people. When you are talking about technology, you think about you need to interact with technology people who don't understand finance. So it's a entire change management and the entire people management skill set which you need to acquire.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really fascinating. Are there any examples that any of you can share of effective strategic leadership role that, of course, you're all in on a very large and high level degree? So any examples from your experience where you've really had to use these skills, be it people skills, be it research tech skills, to hone in your leadership position in the organization?
I can just begin with, we were fortunate enough to do 2 acquisitions in the last 3 years. And in my entire career, I've actually not really been part of any large acquisition. And it was a new area of expertise for me, and entirely new area for my entire team. So one had to really, unlearn a lot of things, acquire a different skill set of engaging with investment bankers, with lawyers, and doing integration management and project management office and all of that, and also arranging the funds. So it was a very different experience, and it was a large acquisition as well. So it actually took a lot of effort, not only at my end but also at my team's end, to effectively navigate through the entire process and make it successful. But yes, I think today, if I look back, we were very successful because we were able to plan very well, we were able to execute very well, and we were able to conclude the deals, both the deals, in record times. And today we are sitting on those laurels and we are enjoying that. But yes, when it was on the the anvil, or when it was on the drawing board, it seemed like a very, very big change, and we were just thinking whether we will be able to do it or not.
Sure, I can imagine. Thank you for sharing that. Any other examples you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think everyone will resonate with this, especially for startup, new age, tech enabled enterprises. Profitability and growth is always a seesaw, and then there are times when you have to press one button or the other. And today what is really expected is we don't simply strategize for it, we actually go out and lead the charge of delivering on either the profitability or the growth mandate. So I think we've had across the last 5 years, again, various cycles. There was COVID, and we are healthcare, so I think significantly impacted, followed by, say, a growth wave, consolidation. So we've seen those cycles, and I think we are now expected to step up, lead the charge, and deliver on the organizational mandate.
Yeah, I can imagine. What role does, for example, scenario planning play when it comes to strategizing, again, across the board, really? You're dealing with so many factors.
It's very important, right? I mean, obviously, the scenario analysis will tell you what direction to play. But I think more importantly, a direction is a direction. You need it to translate into action. And for us to go to our board, internal leadership team, stakeholders, when it's a go-to sort of where we lay out what the direction is and essentially get organizational buy-in. so that the change can be driven effectively. So it's super critical.
Super vital, yeah, absolutely. Rahul, as you mentioned, digital transformation is also a very important aspect that CFOs need to be on top of, really keep track of. What would you say are some of the big challenges that you faced when it comes to keeping up with digital transformation in the role of a CFO, and how have you addressed some of these challenges?
I will say there are two challenges if from a high level. One is people on finance side don't understand technology, and technology people don't understand finance. So I think that's the biggest challenge when it comes to implementing a technology development from finance perspective, if I look at. And second is the risk associated with those challenges. People try to work in silos. I will say technology team has their own mandate or own priorities, finance team has their own priorities. Making sure that those silos get broken up and you are able to do an integrated work together for the benefit of the organization becomes the biggest challenge. So what we have done is we have put a program management and product management team in place who helps both of them to prioritize what is important for the organization rather than just looking at individual functions, and so that organization at a large scale gets benefited out of those development.
Okay, very interesting. Anand, anything you'd like to?
No, I can't agree more with Rahul. I think the biggest challenge in any digital transformation, and believe you in me, I have done plenty of them. I'm that rare person who loves technology. I love technology more than finance, and probably my team is exactly the reverse.
Okay.
And in my entire 25, 26 years of professional journey, every team that I've worked with, it's been the same story. So it's all the more challenging. Because you are so passionate about technology and you want to implement so many changes, and you'll always have two kinds of people in your team. People who sort of want to please you, and people who are extremely difficult to change.
Okay.
So people who would want to please you, whether they understand technology or they don't understand technology, but they will still fall in line. But the majority of the others, they will always find their sweet reasons why to say no. And it becomes extremely difficult to get your way through, convince them why this change is going to be beneficial for them. And it's not an easy task. It's definitely not an easy task. Good thing which has also happened in the last at least 4-5 years is with more youngsters coming in, more awareness about digital tools. Some part of that is now a bit of, it's softening a bit. But still, I think the bigger challenges still remain around cybersecurity, which is a new threat. So any digital transformation that you want to do, you now have to be extremely risk averse. And with open networks and with AIs of the world, the kind of data security that you have to take care of becomes extremely very difficult to manage. Last but not the least also is the cost management part, because nowadays what is, unlike the earlier days where you buy a technology product and you implement it and that's it. Today most of the products have a very limited cost, which is an upfront cost. And then there is a lot of cost, which is the tail cost. So you really cannot budget it or forecast that this is going to cost you only this much. So then costs go out of hand. And it becomes extremely difficult because as the CFO, you have taken that mandate and you are responsible for the budget. But there are technology risks because then the technology can also get obsoleted, and most of these products will come out with some different versions and some different upgradations for which you would not be prepared for. So these two are now additional challenges that we now need to take care of.
Yeah, absolutely. And keeping all this in mind, surely driving ultimately what you're looking for, sustainable initiatives, right? You're looking for sustainable growth and of course ultimately hitting the bottom line. So how does it all tie in? If you can each help us sort of pull together all these factors that we've been discussing today, how the role of the CFO is evolving, and ultimately how do you really ensure that whatever you're bringing into the organization is a sustainable initiative, Prabhat?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's something always top of mind. I mean, a chain that you drive, if it doesn't sort of sustain, there's no real point, right? All the effort goes waste. And I think really program managing that change right from the conceptualization stage, and then sort of getting buy-in, sort of tying in all levers. That is critical. Any change management will not really work unless there is strong buy-in, and I think it is a part of our role to essentially make sure that that buy-in is there, both for tech initiatives, but also for larger strategic initiatives.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Anand.
I think whatever said and done, my take on this is, for the last 10 years, the more I have grown upwards, the more I have become more empathetical. So the people part has started to take more prominence in the things that I do, whether it is change management or people management or people convincing, whatever. But the people part has definitely taken more and more space in what I need to do every day. The second big change which has happened in my role is the inclination of technology absorption. And I believe both of these things will grow even more in my agenda in the years to come, because these are the two cornerstones on which the entire function, what I manage and what I will eventually manage, is going to rest. So while there will be a lot of things that I also will need to manage, but I sense that at least in the last 10 years, these are the two things which have basically shaped, my priorities.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. Rahul, how about you? How are you really ensuring that your initiatives are sustainable, you're focusing on growth and long-term profitability for the organization?
One of my board members always says, if I have two kids, one is growth and one is profit, what you will love more? So you will have to love both. So the mantra is profitable growth is the mantra he always talk about. And I think I totally agree with from his philosophy. You can't love one more than the other, because
true, very true.
The market and you have to create value for all the stakeholders, including the shareholders, including the employees, creators, debtors, every customers, everybody around you. So that's the way I think about sustainable growth and long-term growth. For profitable growth is the only mantra for any company to grow.
Has to go hand in hand. Yeah, yes. Absolutely. Gentlemen, thank you so much for all your insights. It's really been a wonderful session to understand how each of you are experiencing your role as CFO evolving. Before we go though, we have one small surprise and hopefully you will enjoy it. We're going to do a quick rapid fire round, if that's okay. Just some quick questions to understand not only who you are as leaders in the boardroom, but also outside of the boardroom. So a few quick fun questions. It's a rapid fire round, so whatever comes instantly to mind. Yeah. All right. Wonderful. Prabhat, let's kickstart with you. Okay, so the first question is, if you could describe your approach to finance in one word, what would that be?
I think technology enabled.
Okay. Anand?
Integrity.
Okay.
Business partnering.
Okay, great. Very rapid. Wonderful. If you were not a CFO, what would you have been? Rahul, let's start with you.
I'm a cricketer.
Okay.
Software developer.
Okay.
Maybe I would have been a lawyer, I think.
All right, sportsman, very interesting. If finance were a superhero, what superpower would it have, Anand?
Visualizing what is going to come next.
Okay, so future foresight. All right, Prabhat?
I don't know, maybe a Superman, fly and get things done really fast.
Very important.
I think Iron Man, that's Avengers.
Yes, the hero of the show. Okay. If you were to write a book, what would it be about?
See, I'm a big fantasy person, so probably something in the fantasy domain.
All right. Okay, great.
I'll write a book on my college life.
Is it?
Yeah.
So that can definitely happen, I'm sure, for both of you.
I think how to bring about change.
Yes. Okay, wonderful. And finally, one reason why you love finance, in a word. Anand? Okay, in a sentence maybe. One word is tough.
No, I love finance because the power that it gives me to, not to control, but to experiment with myself, I think is immense.
So I think just visualizing the business as data and then sort of driving it through numbers comes very naturally, and I really enjoy that.
All right, wonderful. Rahul?
I think I'm a number guy, so that's why I love finance.
Makes so much sense. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing all your insights and being with us today on ET Studios.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Devina. It was wonderful talking to you.
Thank you. All right, on that note, we conclude this episode of ETCFO presents ET Studio CFO Blueprint in association with SAP. But do tune in next time for more strategies and solutions to navigate the evolving landscape of finance from India's industry stalwarts. Until next time, many thanks for watching.